Hey, welcome back to the shop. You might have caught the last video we did together when we did a tour of the shop. Since then, I've taken over the business as 100% owner. I did originally have a partner when I started this shop. No crazy dramatic story there. It's just the shop is a grind and it's not for everyone. So I've been in here doing a lot of different kinds of work, a lot of work for the electric utility industry and a lot of just weird odd and end little jobs. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is developing some products for the shop. So we're going to be doing these brass mallets today and making a video on how these are produced. We've sold a good amount of them already, so that's really exciting, and really appreciate all the support. But today, I guess we're really just going to make a video on how we go from raw stock to finished product. So these are made out of 2x2 half-hard brass. I buy this in a 12-foot length. It's pretty heavy, so the first thing I do is when I get it in here, I put my chop saw on the floor and I just cut this in half at 6 feet. That makes it a little more manageable. From there, it comes over to the saw, and I will set up a stop block at 2 1/4. That's the stock size for this particular part. And I like to just batch it out, so I'll make anywhere from 10 to 20 cuts. That'll kind of keep me busy, and it's nice to sort of batch that out. So we'll cut the stock, it goes over to the cart over there, and from there I start milling the first side of the mallet. So this is what it looks like after it's cut to its stock length. So this is 2x2, 2 1/4 in length here. This goes into the mill and the first side is milled, and that kind of comes out looking like this. So you can see we've done a couple here just to dial on the tool path, but basically this will get roughed out, profiled, this fillet will go around, and then it'll get surfaced to its final height on this side, and that pretty much takes care of it for side one over here. We're going to get to the cutting. You'll see right now we're just doing it really traditional. Vise and parallel is not really efficient. One of the problems with this machine is it's got a very small memory limit in the controller, so I'm trying to still figure out the best way to do some kind of a high volume work holding solution like a pallet or a fixture, and still be able to load enough code where the controller will take it and I'll get at least some walk away time. For now, I'm kind of just babysitting the machine, but the idea with these products is get enough consistent cash flow into the shop to kind of justify and responsibly purchase a newer machine that'll be more capable of doing this kind of work. We're going to start cutting one. Usually cut the phase converter in the machine for the sake of the audio and video, but now that we're ready to cut, we'll kick this on. So I already have all of the programs loaded into this USB stick here. This Titan DNC box basically allows you to upload G-code through this box here. So it takes the USB Type A, goes through an RS-232 port, and then you can pull up these programs. Because the controller has got such a limited memory, I keep them on the USB stick, and then I will individually load them and delete them kind of as they are needed. So this first side here is broken up into 3 different programs to be able to do this. While I'm getting everything loaded, I'll just start loading the first program here. So the last one I ran was program 1003, so we'll just delete that out real quick. And then we'll come over and we'll load the first program, which will be 1001. So I have chisel mallet side 1 in this little subfolder on the DNC box. We'll send that to the controller, and now you can see external memory, tapping center, controller here. So that'll kind of load in. As that's doing its thing, I'll come over here and quickly just deburr the edges of these stock here. I don't know if you really have to do this. It's just kind of a habit for me. I always do it for some reason. Maybe you need to, maybe you don't. All the work coordinates are all set up. So take the piece of stock here, throw it in the vise and just bump it up against this stop. Now this is a rough, side one, so you don't have to be too careful as long as it's making contact with that pin and it's relatively in the right spot. Should be good to go. Used to torque my vise with a torque wrench. Now I just wrench it. I feel like at this point, after doing it for a little while, I have a little bit of a better feel. And we'll just hit it with the dead blow real quick. Make sure it's seated on the parallels. It's not going to be perfect because the saw cuts coming off the chop saw are not always totally true, but that should be good for now. So now we're good to go. The tools are loaded, programs in the controller. We'll pull up the program. We can hit cycle start cutting. Throw my glasses on real quick. That's it for that one. So this is as it comes out of machining after side one. Now it's got to get flipped and get all this geometry here. So we've just retooled the machine to be able to do that. We're going to throw this in and cut this geometry here, surface it to final height, and drill and tap the hole so it can be connected to a handle. There you go. So that's it. Had to break that up into a couple different passes just because the limited memory on the controller, but you can see it cuts that geometry and drills and taps a hole there. So we'll take that out of the vise. And that's it. Wipe that off real quick. So hopefully, this is pretty dialed in now, but we'll find some efficiencies with doing multiple at a time. Still kind of figuring that out on this machine, but Nevertheless, pretty cool. I do a little bit of a, 220 just on this edge here. You could chamfer that ever so slightly, but I don't want to risk not having it line up flush with the handle. So I just give it a little bit of that. Do a Scotch-Brite finish all around, and that's pretty much it.
Now it's ready for the wood shop.
Now it's ready for the wood shop. So the handle will get turned. It takes a 3/8 16 thread per inch threaded rod. So that'll go in the handle and they get assembled just like that. So this sticks out about an inch from the mallet when it's properly in there. And you'll see the handle is turned to the face of the mallet, and we just clean it up, and that's that.
All right, here we are back in my shop. This is the mallet head that I just picked up from Walters. I've got a few finished mallets here. Some of them still need a little bit of work, but they're getting close. Now I'm going to show you all the steps it takes to make the handle. All the handles are made out of Jatoba, and this is an 8/4 by just a little more than 3" by 19" long board. And from this board, if I don't make any mistakes, I should be able to get 4 handles. So I'm going to mill this board into 4 pieces that will measure 1 3/8 by 1 3/8 by 8 5/8 long. And the next step is the drill press. Over at the drill press, I've made a simple jig to pre-drill a hole in the center to center the part on the lathe. And on the other side, I'm set up with a 5/16 of an inch drill bit to drill a hole that will later be tapped for the threaded rod. From the drill press, I come over to the vise, put the part in the vise, and use a little water as a lubricant, and then a socket with the impact driver to tap the threads. And I'll use a wrench to remove the bolt. And I'll bring the camera over so you can get a close look at the threads. From here, I go over to the table saw, set the blade at a 45-degree angle, and take a 45 off of each corner so there's less material to remove when I'm working on the lathe. Then all the parts come back to the vise. The handle goes back in the vise, and then a little epoxy goes into the threaded hole, and the threaded rod goes back with the epoxy. The nuts are removed, and then the next step is to get to work on the lathe. I use a slow drying epoxy, so I'll let the epoxy set up overnight, then attach the handle to the mallet head, and get as tight as I can by hand. I set the lathe up with this simple jig to nest the head of the mallet, and I'll tighten up the tailstock. And this is what I'm using for all of my measurements. So if I hold this end here, it says from brass head, and I've already marked this, but you can see. I'll just make a mark here and work from the head of the mallet to that mark and from the tail of the mallet to that mark. And once it's mostly round, I'll give it a test with this other jig that I've made. And once it fits over with just the tool turning, then I'll remove the tool rest and sand it to finish. I'll taper the tool rest towards the mallet head, so when I'm turning the handle, the taper follows the tool rest. Now I'll change the taper from the tail to the center. Now I'll remove the tool rest and shape it the rest of the way with sandpaper, starting with 80 grit paper. While the mallet's still on the lathe, I'll finish it with shellac. Now I'll use this jig on the bandsaw to cut the angle at the top of the handle. Okay, well, that's about it. That's about it. There's actually quite a few steps in this whole process, but very cool. I'm enjoying it. It's fun to do a project with my son. I'm really impressed with him. I know that he is talking about getting a new machine that would make the whole process quicker. So this one is just about done now. There are a few little steps. So at this point, the handle gets removed. The top of the handle gets sanded down to 220. And then the top of the handle gets hit quickly with 2 coats of shellac. And the whole handle gets lightly sanded with 220. 1 more coat of shellac. So 3 coats of shellac. Little Loctite, and the handle goes back into the mallet head. Then the gloves go on and the mallet head gets polished with Scotch-Brite. Then it goes into a box, and the plan is to ship these out on December 5th. So we've sold a bunch of these. We're not going to sell too many more because I think we're going to wait till the brass runs out. I think it's maybe 50 or 55 mallets. We're more than halfway there now. And then we're just going to take a little bit of a break to figure out how we can automate this. Obviously, there's going to be faster ways to make these. I could duplicate them on the lathe. But at this point, it's kind of fun just to come out and turn a half a dozen handles. It's not a lot of brain power, and it's really satisfying work. So I'm just enjoying it. But if we were to get a huge order, obviously, we'd have to figure out how to make them faster. But yeah, really cool. And I hope you like these, and if you do want one, I'll have a link in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. If you'd like to build the furniture for your home, I hope that you'll check out my website at johnpeters.com with a wide variety of projects from shop furniture to home furniture to outdoor projects. I know you'll find something that'll inspire you to spend more time in the shop. So I hope that you'll click on the link in the description below and let me help you with your next woodworking project.